Look, imagine a $1 billion program funded by your tax dollars, and that $1 billion program for the emergency shelter systems is only scratching the surface. I'm going to explain a little bit here of what's going on. So let's take it back. Since January of 21, there's obviously been millions upon millions of illegal immigrants that have come into this country. And Massachusetts, alongside states like California and New York, we have become one of the top destinations. This is not really by accident. I think this is more so by design. By latest estimates, we have around 355,000 illegal or otherwise inadmissible migrants now residing in our Commonwealth. These are individuals that arrive through either border crossings, parole programs, or who have overstayed their visas. We'll include them too. This surge has overwhelmed our shelter system so fast that we had to turn to hotel systems in order to accommodate what is happening. And it's really not just about housing. It's about the schools, it's about the social services, and it's about healthcare. It's obvious. The state just can't keep up. Our budget just keeps on expanding and expanding and expanding. And instead of slowing down, Governor Maura Healey and the state legislature, they are doubling, if not tripling down on the sanctuary policies, guaranteeing housing, health coverage, and a whole entire web of welfare programs, regardless of legal status. And I'll talk more about those policies in a little bit here. But for today, I wanted to lay the foundation for what's more than likely going to be a two-part video, maybe even a collaborative video, because for me to do this in one video, the data here is just too deep to tackle all at once, and I'll probably end up having to share my screen to show you what is going on. So today, let me break it down like this. Let's talk about the devil you know versus the devil you don't when it comes to the cost of illegal immigration in Massachusetts. And I'll tell you right now, the devil you don't know is potentially costing us substantially more. The devil you do know is the $1 billion emergency shelter system. Yes, it's a massive number. We know this. But we've been spending that much or close to that much over the last few years, right? And I don't think that is breaking news anymore. This has become commonplace. But what most people, they don't realize this, is that the overwhelming majority of people receiving those benefits are newly arrived migrant families. But if you think that's the full price tag, it's not. That is like the front porch, okay? The emergency shelter is what the media talks about the most, because I think it may be a talking point or the most compassionate or emotionally charged talking point, right? Because you're talking about temporary housing, meals, basic health care, vaccinations, diapers, formula, shots, Uber rides, and some job placement. That's really what the emergency shelter system entails. That's what I like to call the front end of illegal immigration. But the real long-term cost that nobody wants to talk about and nobody wants to calculate involves education, welfare, healthcare, public benefits, and public safety. This is not speculation. This is backed by what somebody sent me, which was incredible. It's a report from July of 2024 by somebody named Jessica Vaughn. She is the Director of Policy Studies at the Center of Immigration Studies. What they do is basically specialize in immigration policy. However, I didn't just stop there, guys. I dug through data. I pulled all the data. I'm very skeptical. I dug through data from SNAP, WIC, Mass Health, CMSP, Health Safety Net, and a whole bunch of other acronyms I can't even remember. Then what I did is I cross-referenced if those benefits extended to illegal immigrants. And the results were honestly shocking. So despite federal restrictions, illegal immigrants in Massachusetts can access a surprising amount of taxpayer-funded aid, especially if they have U.S.-born children who qualify automatically. And if you think Massachusetts is alone in this, by the way, think again, because I also cross-referenced that data with data from other sanctuary states, and their policies, they almost mimic one another. So we're not alone in this, okay? And you might say that Massachusetts is not necessarily a sanctuary state, but in practice, it is, okay? Even if the label is not official. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, 59% of illegal immigrant-headed households use at least one major welfare program, and that is 20 points higher, or 20 percentage points higher than a native-born household, okay? In 2021 alone, these households cost U.S. taxpayers $42 billion. And in Massachusetts, we are even more generous. In December of 23, our lawmakers passed a $6 million measure to give SNAP benefits to certain inadmissible or illegal immigrants, both lawful and unlawful. That money, I've talked about this before, that money ran dry in just over 2 months, with 4,000 families claiming the benefits. They spent tens of thousands of dollars per day, right? It was insane. Jessica Vaughn has, and this is her quote, she calls what's coming a fiscal time bomb. Thousands of migrants paroled in the United States under Biden's policies will soon become eligible for full federal welfare benefits after 5 years in the states. Okay? Massachusetts guarantees subsidized or outright free health care to illegal immigrants. Every child under 19 gets health care with absolutely no restrictions at all, okay? And I'll tell you, just to show you how big the numbers are, there are roughly 4 million children of illegal immigrants or unaccompanied minors in the United States schools. In Massachusetts, we are educating roughly about 25,000 illegal alien children or U.S.-born children of illegal immigrants, right? That's around 25,000 students at a cost of $23,000 per student per year. I'm just supplying you with the math. I'm not criticizing this, right? But that is an estimate of about $575 million annually towards the education bill. And here's the bottom line. What we are witnessing here in Massachusetts is not just a policy issue. It's a fiscal problem, okay? It's a fiscal problem. Like, this is an unsustainable problem. The cost of illegal immigration isn't limited to a line item in the state budget. And this is very hard to track, but it's embedded in the classrooms, our hospitals, our housing market, and our welfare and our healthcare systems. We're not just footing the bill for the emergency shelters. Remember, that's the front end of this problem. But we are also signing up for decades of compounding expenses that the state hasn't even begun to fully quantify. Okay, I'll leave you with one more, and this is going to be like a sample of what to expect in the future video. All right. The average lifetime cost per illegal immigrant is about $68,000 to the taxpayer. We have roughly about 355,000 illegal or inadmissible migrants in Massachusetts. That long-term cost is over $24 billion. And contrary to popular belief, this is not offset by their economic contributions, regardless of what you believe. While illegal immigrants, they do generate taxable income, the problem is the vast majority work in either cash-based or underreported sectors. So what happens is their contributions is far less in taxes than they receive in their services, state-run or federally run services. And according to federal estimates, the total annual tax contributions of illegal immigrants nationwide hovers around 20, maybe up to $25 billion. You could even say 30 billion. Okay, we'll give it some benefit of the doubt here. But their annual net cost to the taxpayer exceeds $150 billion when you factor in education, healthcare, welfare, and other public benefits. That's not a net positive. That's a growing deficit. And as these numbers, they continue to swell year over year, it's not the politicians or the bureaucrats who will pay the price. It's the working class taxpayers who are expected to carry the weight of this burden. That's what it is. And in part 2, I'll go over where else the money is going and who may be profiting from these systems and why the long-term impact, it could really reshape not just Massachusetts here, but the entire country. It's a massive, massive problem. And again, I'm not criticizing any of these things. I'm not trying to criticize. I'm just saying, and I've said this before, you can't help somebody without hurting another. So there needs to be a more balanced approach to these systems and what is being awarded to certain people. And that's why I believe so many people are upset about this, because it's really not a fair system, right? No, everybody is not on an equal playing field. And when you have states like Massachusetts that are prioritizing illegal immigrants over their own citizens, that is what most people are upset about, because it comes along the playing field of what's fair and what isn't fair. So in a future video, after much data, extracting that data, looking at that data, and then quantifying that data, I'm going to provide you with maybe some kind of spreadsheet and show you where that money is going to best of my ability. I can't even give a percentage of like a plus or minus of how off it may be, but I'm going to guarantee you, I can almost say this with absolute certainty, that the emergency shelter system and the costs of the emergency shelter system are roughly about half, if not a little bit less, than the back end costs. So you can anticipate that if you spend $1 billion in the emergency shelter system, we are also spending $1 billion on the back end between education, healthcare, public services, and systems, stuff like that. I think that would be a generous amount at 50-50, and maybe something along the lines of like 40-60, meaning 40% front end and 60% back end. The reason that most news organizations have not covered this, I think, is because, and this is just my opinion, if you're still watching, I think that there's an emotionally charged bias when you're talking about emergency shelter, right? And a lot of people could get in line with that, or at least they were, okay, until it became a little bit long in the tooth on the spending. But it's very hard to quantify the back end data because it's not line items within the budget. So what you can only do is look at that data, look at what let's say public services that illegal immigrants qualify for, and then figure out the spending from there, and then add everything together. And I'll have a very, very thorough, even an explanation of the methodology to kind of put these numbers together. I don't know when that will be ready. I'm consulting with other people on this to make sure it is generally accurate, but it's a lot of money, guys. And again, I'm not criticizing one way or the other, or not saying somebody shouldn't go to school or not. I'm just saying, in a time where our budget keeps on getting more bloated, we have around 40 to 50 towns and or cities that are looking for overrides of their budget because there's not enough money to pay teachers, or there's not enough money to pay for police or for firemen or firewomen, right? There's a problem, and somebody's got to say it, okay? Somebody has to bring this up. So I'm hoping, honestly, that somebody does this before I do, so I don't have to do it, but I am working on this. So that's it for today's video, just to get an understanding of the front end and the back end systems, okay? That's it. I'll see you on the next one, guys. Bye-bye.